Hey everybody, welcome back to Gamestars League. We are in lucky day number 13 of action here, but 3 days into our group stage finals, players from all over the world are battling it out for over $42,000. How's it going? I'm Andrew Guy. Joining me today is Eric Benemu, our former world champion head coach. Eric, yesterday was a very interesting day of competition. I think the biggest thing that I saw yesterday was a lot of missed spells and beat down domination.
Yeah, we've seen a great advancement in deck choice, I think, but there still is the mistakes that we've seen early on. The nerves maybe still kicking in from the inexperienced players, and hopefully that dies down a little bit, because when they're not there, when those small little mistakes and the spell mistakes aren't there, the level of this competition is absolutely great.
I couldn't agree with you more, and as you can see, these are the most popular cards so far this week in the competition, which is a radical change from what we had in the first couple weeks of competition. The biggest things I think that we're seeing here is that obviously Fireball is still the #1 spell, Mortar seems to be the #1 structure in the game, and Valkyrie being the strongest tanky troop on the ground because of that AoE damage, a great way to soak up those E-barbs, which we actually haven't seen a lot of in the last few days.
It's actually crazy to me that there is no Mother Witch and there is no E-barbs in any of these decks, right? That, like, we've seen maybe 1 or 2 decks use it, but for them to not be in the top cards played is very weird to me, because it's not like there's been a buff there or a nerf to any cards. They've just seemed to fall out of the Gamestars meta.
Yeah, and it's a really surprising thing. It's actually something that I noticed for the very first time back in CRL, the original season when we went over to Tokyo, and the CRL East players were still using a lot of cards that had fallen out of favor in the West, and I'm wondering if maybe it's the West's over-adaptation to the meta, if they're overcorrecting, but we'll have to find out today with 4 new players bringing 3 new decks each to the table. And for you guys that haven't been here with Gamestars League before, the way that it works is each player has to come to the competition with 3 decks. Those 3 decks can have 6 of the exact same cards in every single deck, but there has to be 2 unique cards in each of their 3 decks, and they have to win with all 3. And the biggest thing about that, Eric, look in the bottom left-hand side of your screen here, the dominant Electro Giant deck with a 0% win rate.
And it's not even a 0% win rate just like that. We've seen it get good matchups and still lose. It's a little bit rough, and that just goes to show that as much as people like to say, oh, this deck takes no skill, or the heavy decks are easy to win with, if you don't know how to play them, they're not as easy as it seems.
And some players coming up today with a lot of experience. Jen Aslan, it seems to be the favorite in this group. He'll be going up against Blairon, Demon Chocolate, and Gas. You can see that in the bottom left-hand side of your screen there for Group C. But so far this week, we've had Beneficious and Eternity make their way through this competition. Beneficious going back and forth with Predator, and Eternity doing it all with some beatdown. I'm very curious to see what we'll be seeing from Group C today. Our players from Turkey, Albania, Russia, and Lebanon. We've seen all of them compete before, Eric.
Yeah, we have, and like you said, I'm very curious, because all these players were able to submit new decks. They don't have to keep using what they were using before. And we've seen players like Dimas, who went very Mega Knight heavy decks, a lot of push, go into 3 Mortar decks, right? So there could be a lot of changes, and I'm very curious to see who it really pays off for.
And on the other side of that, the guy that ran 3 Mortar decks yesterday, who had a lot of success with them in his first set, ended up struggling with it exponentially more in his set with Eternity, based off of some crazy misplays and things like that, getting ahead of himself. And one of the conversations that I think it opened up was that we had one guy running Mortar in every single deck, and then the other guy running Beatdown in every single one of his decks, but different versions. One was Lava Hound, one was Electro Giant, the other one was Goblin Giant Sparky. It does seem that the variability of decks seems like the better way to go, as long as you can pick up 1 win with each of them.
I think the only way you can really get away with playing the same deck archetype 3 times, if you are the best in the world with it. If you have someone like back in the day, Royal played 3 Golem decks, he could get away with it. Igor can get away with 3 different Mortar decks as well. But the thing is, they usually vary their decks a lot more than what we've seen. That's, I think, the biggest problem. When we saw the 3 Mortar decks, it was the same style Mortar deck, right? When we see Igor run different Mortar decks, we see Mortar Hog, Mortar Miner, Mortar Valk. So it's way different decks that seem like the same style, but they're played completely different.
And that's the great thing about GameStar's deck selection, is that you can use some of the same cards, but you can change up that win condition. As you can see here, Aslan actually had a lot of success in his original days of competition. He just was not able to close things out for that first place spot and make it all the way through to international finals yet. But as you can see, 3 very different win conditions and a lot of success.
Yeah, and I really like these decks because they seem to fit his playstyle. Not anyone else. I don't think we saw run a Ram Rider Mega Knight deck, and he actually went 100% win rate with it. So I'm curious to see if he repeats that or just comes out with a different type of surprise, because at the end of the day, this was a very big surprise factor when you see Mega Knight Ram Rider Mother Witch.
Yeah, and his opponent Blairon here running with, you know, that no win condition deck in the middle was pretty popular for a couple weeks. It just didn't seem like it was as strong though in competition. Just no way to get damage on tower late game other than with the Magic Archer, and without the Tornado, it's really hard to line up that Magic Archer when you're playing against the top tier. The other 2 decks, you know, the top of the screen, the most popular Royal Giant deck in the meta for a while, and then at the bottom of your screen, what seemed like was the best way to go right when the meta changed, but now a lot of those cards have kind of fallen out of favor.
They definitely have, and like you said, I don't really like that no win condition, no big spell type of deck, because of how much we've seen the Mega Knight, how much we've seen P.E.K.K.A.s, and both of those are great cards against this deck. They defend the full lane very easily and very cost effective, so that's why I think he struggled so much. I would like to see him stray away from that, and if you do want to use a bridge spam style deck, play a Fireball.
Yeah, and honestly, I'd love to see just like regular good old bridge spam with Magic Archer in there and Fireball, just to see what's up. We haven't seen traditional bridge spam yet in GameStars League, really, and honestly, it's still a very, very strong deck in the current meta because of the Electro Giant, because of the E-Barbs, because of a lot of things. The Mega Knight, as you just mentioned. So here we go. Blairon, bottom of your screen from Kosovo, top of your screen, Jen Aslan from Turkey. These guys are fighting for their lives in their BO5 today. It is a double elimination, so they have a chance. If they lose once today and win their second one, though, they will be coming back for competition on Friday. So here we go. First graveyard in from Blairon.
Yeah, and I really like that snowball. It forced out an Electro Spirit out of him, and he tried to get a little bit more damage. But I do like what I'm seeing so far out of both of these players. Graveyard, we've seen have some success, and on top, we get to see another cycle deck, which I really, really love. And I think Aslan is one of those players that can actually use it effectively. We've seen him not only here, but in CRL as well, in those qualifiers, be a very, very smart player, a very understanding player of that micro. So I'm excited to see how he does with it.
Yeah, he's got great micro, great macro understanding of the game, and as you said, he's very, very comfortable playing these cycle decks. He's very good at, you know, playing patiently, getting minor chip damage in, and being happen. And Blairon, a little bit more of a bang hitter, and as you can see, there we go. We get the P.E.K.K.A. down today for the very, very first time, which I like. I think this is a good deck. We've seen the P.E.K.K.A. Graveyard deck have a good amount of success so far in this tournament. Not this exact variant, but honestly, what was so interesting about the P.E.K.K.A. Graveyard deck when it succeeded was that the Graveyard was really the win condition. The P.E.K.K.A. hardly ever came down.
Yeah, and I guess that's all really coming down to what matchup you get. Some matchups the P.E.K.K.A. will be...
Eric!
Yeah, that's rough. That is... I mean, it's unfortunate, but I don't think he had anything for it, right? I don't think there was... the only thing I could say, maybe play the Valk a little bit higher, but then if you get the Spear Goblins onto the Graveyard, it gets snowballed, and then you lose to the Graveyard. So I think this is just very, very tough in general for him. And that's a little bit of what I was saying. It's very matchup dependent on whether the P.E.K.K.A. is going to be very strong or just simply an extra card in your deck.
So nice defense there on the mortar to get a little bit damage on tower, but Graveyard comes back in, and yeah, that P.E.K.K.A. really doing dirty work on Aslan's tower on the top right-hand side of the screen. Valkyrie turns around to get on those skeletons from the Graveyard. P.E.K.K.A., Big Mama P.E.K.K.A. gets a big swing on that tower, and Aslan knows it was a big mistake. I like that he didn't sell out in that moment and do the thing that we talk about where, yes, he's trying to get damage in, but he does it in an unintelligent way or in a offense that isn't really going to work out. I like that he got the mortar down, defended it well, and he reset.
And there's that snowball, which is gonna maybe let him get a... Yeah, there, he got 2 little hits of the skellies, and now he's basically 1 spell cycle away. If there's something very, very weird that happens here, he could lose, but I highly doubt that is gonna happen with that Fisherman and that Musketeer getting taken care of by the Mega Minion, and that's game over for Jen Aslan there, and a rough start.
Yeah, really, really rough start, and I really like the recognition there from Blairon. early and single elixir to go in with that graveyard. Aslan gives him the well played, and that's another thing I really enjoy about watching Aslan play, is he does seem to be a very respectable opponent, giving, he tips his hat to the guy that outplays him. And in that moment, it seemed like the graveyard was really aggressive early on, but Blairon had a good recognition of where they were at elixir wise. Aslan defends that graveyard. As you said, he has to drop down that Electro Spirit. He baits it out because of the snowball, and Blairon was actually up in elixir at that point with a little bit of damage in, and from there on out, it felt like Aslan was just kind of playing from behind.
He definitely was, and it seemed like the deck itself was just going to struggle overall, because even if he did defend, we know there was Fisherman in Blairon's deck, so that miner at most would get 1 or 2 hits every time, and there's nothing much you can do with looking at the decks for that Fisherman, right? We've seen that Lightning decks, they can predict it, or you can kind of get it to the other side with the NATO. There was none of that here, so he had no way of getting that miner to actually do enough damage, and that P.E.K.K.A was always going to demand so much defense.
Exactly, the P.E.K.K.A demanding a lot of defense. With most mortar decks these days, the Valkyrie is very, very strong, but they'll also have cards like skeletons, goblins. They'll have an ice golem, those spear goblins to help move and navigate that P.E.K.K.A around. But as you saw, spear goblins out of cycle, Valkyrie dropped a little bit low, and nothing there for Aslan to drop. So he's going to go back to the exact same deck. Let's see if he has a little bit more success here. Blairon maybe going to Electro Giant or Royal Giant. Fisherman going to get a nice snag.
Yeah, and again, another Fisherman deck, which you never want to see when you're playing these type of miner control decks. Every time he has that Fisherman in cycle, that miner is going to struggle. Though the one thing that I do like here is that he recognizes, okay, there's no Fisherman, I might be able to get some extra damage, let me go in now. But now he realizes, okay, he has E-Wiz also, so when the Fisherman doesn't pull my miner, he'll just E-Wiz on top of it, and it's going to struggle a little bit, I think.
Yeah, Blairon has a lot of great responses there to the miner, and you see the head tip once again from Aslan. The P.E.K.K.A comes out, and this is what you and I were talking about, Eric. People needing to adapt to the meta, evolve with the meta, and it really truly feels like the Mama P.E.K.K.A is one of the most important cards to go to for at least right now, until maybe the Royal Recruits pop into the meta because Mama P.E.K.K.A has become so firmly in. But you saw that P.E.K.K.A come down, and immediately Aslan tilted his head and was like, oh man, this is going to be a rough matchup once again. E-Wiz, Fisherman, P.E.K.K.A. Good luck.
Yeah, and I think the problem was Aslan was still kind of praying that this could be an RG deck, and an RG deck would never get through, right? Because that mortar well placed with the Musketeer DPS and the Valk, it actually has a decent matchup. And as soon as he saw that P.E.K.K.A, it was like, okay, not this again. How am I gonna win this match? And it comes down to deck choice, and I think Blairon, like you said, adapted really well. He realized there's not a lot of Royal Recruits being played. There was none played from Aslan. Let me go P.E.K.K.A graveyard, and I should get good matchups.
Yeah, because Aslan did like to run a lot of cards that were very, very, weak to the P.E.K.K.A. Even when he went to the skies, P.E.K.K.A's still going to do good groundwork there. And as a lot of great bridge spam and P.E.K.K.A players will do, is someone's going to set up a Lava Hound, then you can just kind of set up for a ground push in the opposite lane and really split up their elixirs. So Mortar connects on the right-hand side. As you can see, Blairon setting up a city on his side of the map, or I should say a village, as a lot of people are there. A lot of troops on the board, and that Mama P.E.K.K.A working through, tanking for the Fisherman on tower once again.
Yeah, and a misplaced Valk there is gonna cost him basically the tower, because I thought he was gonna get it down in time, but that Fisherman locked on, targeted his tower, and just went straight through before the Valk came down. Little bit of a mistiming, little bit of overplay on the right. I think he got that Musketeer down on the bridge to take care of the cage, but it wasn't really necessary, and then he put it in a position where it was gonna get pulled by the Fisherman. Maybe just got a little bit anxious trying to do too much, and it backfired on him.
I gotta say, man, I love the decks that we are seeing out of Blairon right now. They're calm, they're patient graveyard decks that have so much tankage on the ground. That Mama P.E.K.K.A is doing so much work. You can see Aslan has no way how to defend the graveyard and defend that P.E.K.K.A, because even with that deck, as you saw, it didn't have the snowball to take the skeletons off the board, but the poison was always there if and when he needed it. So I think that's one of the reasons why you saw Aslan maybe misplace his troops, because he didn't want to give a lot of poison value, but he did need to stop that P.E.K.K.A and defend the graveyard, which he just could not do 2 games in a row. And right now, it's something that you and I have echoed since day one: deck selection, deck selection, deck selection.
It's so important in this type of format, because once you are in, into these matches. You can't switch your decks, you can't adapt, right? You can't see the Pekka graveyard and be like, oh, okay, I have a deck that might work against this. No, once you're in, you're in. So Blairon, literally, like, I think he's the best so far in what we've seen of doing your homework. Great analysis. I really like what he came out with, but I want to see this third deck and how it matches up, because we know very well in this format, until you've actually closed it out, you're not done.
The other fascinating thing about this, Eric, is, you know, with how dominant Mother Witch was for the entirety of this competition, other than this week, and as we were able to see from the top of the show from production and pointing out, Ebarbs and Mother Witch both not in the most used cards in the competition. So Graveyard comes back into the meta, screaming into the meta. Poison's not there, Mother Witch isn't there, and it's just trouble.
Yeah, and now we're gonna see this RG deck come out from Aslan, which is a lot more meta. Going to what you were just saying, we do see Ebarbs here. We should see an RG as well, and I'm not sure if it's gonna work out. That's the biggest problem. And even if it did, look at the matchup he would have got with this. It's even worse than the Mortar if he would have played against the Pekka Graveyard, in my opinion.
I was just going to say, he's got a building, he's got the slow, he's got the fisherman as well, another fisherman, and then of course the hunter as well as the electro wizard. All of those units slowing, stunning, moving around that royal giant, going to be very, very difficult for Aslan to break through, and very curious to see if Blairon had help with his analysis as he came into the finals. Over $30,000 up to grab in the finals, over $42,000 in this tournament. Why not share some of the love and get an analyst?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes down to this, a lot of people might not want to hire someone else. They don't want to pay, but you can just do it based on, you know, success, right? You don't have to. Most of these analysts are happy to help you and say, look, if you win, if I do well, then we could talk about, you know, me getting something. And at the end of the day, I'd rather give away some of actually winning than not winning and not have anything to even talk about, right? So just,
I couldn't agree more.
Just secure the winnings and then figure it out.
I think Blairon actually did a really, really good job with his defense there. You know, Aslan was able to keep that Pekka at the bridge, at bay, able to knock her back, get a heal spirit in, and ended up getting a good counter push. Royal Giant comes down, but nice defense there from Blairon. But you can see on the right-hand side, kind of reaping his rewards of that misplayed defense is Blairon. His tower down to 842 now.
Yeah, he made a kind of a pretty big mistake there, and Aslan finally finding a way to get through. My only issue here with what we were just talking about with Blairon is, as much as I love his analysis, 3 Pekka decks might be a little bit when it comes down to what we've seen in this tournament so far. You don't want to go triple of the same style deck. We've seen that it doesn't pay off generally, so I'm a little bit scared for him, even though it is a different type of Pekka deck.
Yeah, it's probably going to be Pekka Graveyard, I'm assuming, with the last card not showing yet, and I believe that's what we see when we see these spotter buildings. Aslan calling the well played, well played, well played, trying to get a little BM out there, I believe, just because he's happy to finally pick up a game. And as you can see, he is really pouring it on. And you know what? At this point, I think what it is that he's running to Pekka every single time. He's running to Fisherman every single time. It's been very, very tough matchups, and I think honestly, in that specific game, would you say that Blairon had I mean, we talked about the top of the game. He had a really good matchup there. He had Fisherman, he had a building, he had a Pekka, but he was kind of playing his Pekkas carelessly when knowing Royal Giant was the opponent's win condition.
I think he was very slow in predicting Fisherman placements. It was always getting the pull. Aslan's Fisherman was always getting the pull instead of Blairon's. You need to be very proactive when there's 2 Fishermen on the field. We've seen it from the best players. Whoever tends to win the matchup is usually the one getting the pulls on their side and the way they want the interactions to play out. And in this one, I don't think Blairon won that Fisherman battle even once.
That's a really great thing for you to point out, Eric. And it's also, as you said, oh, and there we go. We see the Mother Witch being in the hand of Blairon, but not able to get it on the board. Those bridge battles or those river battles with Fishermen plus Skeletons plus Goblins plus Archers, whatever small card you have, are some of the most fascinating in the game, because you talk about Clash Royale being a game of chess. That's a game of chess that goes sometimes 5-6 steps in advance, and it's really one of my favorite things to watch. So Blairon going to come back with the same deck. He has to run this deck back for a potential 3 games. He must win. It is a Pekka Graveyard deck with Fisherman, Electro Wizard, Hunter, and of course this Goblin Hut. Aslan now going to change things up and go back to a different deck than we've seen so far, I believe.
I think so as well. I don't think it had Snowball, the first deck that he ran. So yeah, it didn't have Mega Minion for sure. And let's see how this matches up for Blairon, because like I said, until you close it out, it's not over. Even though you can completely shut down your opponent with your first two decks, we've seen so many players get eliminated, drop down to the lower bracket because of that third deck choice, that he hasn't really won. And I want to see him excel with this deck the same way we saw with the other ones.
I like that. P.E.K.K.A coming down just in time for Blairon, gets the pull off on that Fisherman. P.E.K.K.A does not get a swing on the Mega Knight. Now the Ewiz and the Hunter both out of cycle, and we see a little bit more BM coming out from Aslan, as he knows those are all the best cards for him to respond with. Goblin Hut in the back. Ooh. Fisherman does not pull the Mega Knight. Mega Knight gets on tower. Snowball in, Snowball out both directions. Tower gonna basically fall, and that was a very big hit. And as you just said, Eric, this tournament is never over until it's over. And now Aslan in a very good position to even things up as we move through game number 4.
Yeah, he's in a great spot right now. At this point, all you have to really do is defend. The good thing for Blairon is he knows when it comes to the bridge battle of a Mega Knight versus a P.E.K.K.A, he has the advantage there, but he still needs to get a lot of damage. So it's not just going to be about the bridge battles. You actually have to go on the offensive without overspending, because you just did that, right? He just overspent and he lost the tower, and it seems like he's just going to let this go, which is a lot to let go. It's 700 tower damage that you could have forced out of, at least more than a Night Witch.
And now we're getting a lot of BM here from Aslan. We see defensive Graveyard come out, and I don't actually dislike that play. I think it's going to work out very well here. Now an offensive Graveyard coming out from Blairon. Mother Witch comes down and starts spawning those Hoggies, and that's going to do it. That is going to be game over. We're going to be even going into game number 5. And I got to say, man, I think one of the biggest things in this game, look at the bottom of your screen. 5 Elixir, 2 Elixir, 4 Elixir, 4 Elixir, 7. Respectively, in that order, Blairon played all of those cards before like 3 troops were played on the ground, right? The Mega Knight, as you can see, is the 6th card out for Aslan, which means that all of those cards that I just said were poured into, and they were fighting on Aslan's side of the map. Blairon was so confident with that P.E.K.K.A drop and the Fisherman pull that he doubles it down with the Electro Wizard and the Hunter. That is so much elixir that you are hoping your opponent isn't going to defend, which then you have 0 on offense. And you saw Aslan started pouring out the BM immediately because he knew.
Yeah, he definitely did. And this is one of those decks. The Mega Knight Graveyard deck is one of those decks that we've seen for, I think, over a year now. If you don't have enough elixir, you are not stopping it. There is no way. Every time we've seen a Mega Knight Graveyard go down and the other player is down on elixir, they lose that tower. At least, well, not every time, but at least 90% of the time, right? And Blairon didn't identify that early on. Like you said, he risked it. He threw that P.E.K.K.A on the bridge straight off in front of troops that he already had down, and it cost him the match. But we do have to say, Aslan has to go back to that Mortar deck, which struggled so far against P.E.K.K.A Graveyard, and I don't think it'll be any different here.
Yeah, that's a very important thing that you bring up here. So as you just said, Mortar comes down early on, Goblin Hunt out. I hate Goblin Hunt versus Mortar. It's very frustrating. Blairon decides to go Hunter up high, and I think that's a good choice. He knows that the Hunter is not really going to be needed that much this game. The Ewiz is going to probably be his favorite defense for that Miner, as it can mitigate 100%, whereas the Hunter is going to be less necessary because there aren't any big tanky troops on the board other than the Valkyrie.
Yeah, he has way too many defenses for the Miner to actually be worried. He can even P.E.K.K.A in the back like he's doing there. He has the Fisherman, he has the Ewiz. He just has any possible defense that he wants. There should be the Ewiz coming down. There it is, and it mitigates completely the Spear Goblins and basically the Miner, and he still has a full P.E.K.K.A on the right.
Yeah, and you see Aslan's just going to ignore the Ewiz. Yep, he does. I mean, I don't think he completely meant to. The Musketeer does not go where it needs. P.E.K.K.A gets on top of that Valkyrie. Lucky interaction there for the Fisherman as well. Yeah,
this is it. It should have been it. He got lucky. I said this is it because I thought it was going to actually cross and push the P.E.K.K.A back. But yeah, he got a little bit lucky there, like you said, and it saved him. But he needs to be very careful with the placements of the Musketeers that high and the Fisherman being available.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that Aslan is kind of holding on to hope for is the fact that what you pointed out in an earlier matchup is that Blairon has been a little slow to the draw with his Fisherman. And if Aslan can get that advantage every single time with the Electro Spirit, with the Spear Goblins or whatever to protect that Musketeer. That's going to be a very, very important part of him taking this game.
Yeah, and this I do like out of Aslan that he didn't do in the previous games. He's forcing out split lane defenses by placing down that mortar. I think it's very smart out of him. This Fisherman is going to get taken off the board as well, hopefully for Aslan, and it does. So this is a lot of things that he won't have to deal with that he was having to deal with in previous matches. But look at all those skellies coming down. It's just so tough. It seems like he did everything right, and even then he lost half his tower.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think the only thing that maybe could have been different is that Electro Spirit comes down before the Valkyrie and starts its chain lightning, if you will, but still very, very difficult to pull off. Now you see a very nice fireball on top of those Spear Goblins and Musketeer that will take the Muskie off the board. Aslan's going to have to play a high Valkyrie to take those both off the board. And he goes back on offense with the mortar, but that mortar and this offense is very, very difficult to get that much damage. And he needs to do 1900 damage while in double elixir against a graveyard deck with mortar and miner.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem viable at all. It doesn't seem like it can happen, at least not before he gets 800 damage taken off of him. That's the biggest issue here. If this was a much closer game, I'd be okay with it. I could tell you maybe he could still win it, but it seems at this point like just a naked graveyard with snowball fireball could even win him the game.
So Blairon fireballs the mortar. He goes in with the P.E.K.K.A. graveyard opposite lane. He waits for the snowball. He goes early on the snowball. Spear Goblins don't drop, and right then and there, Aslan just kind of waiting and calling his bluff.
I can't believe he just took that much damage, and he's letting the Musketeer take care of this Goblin out as well. If he could tank with the Valkyrie, which I'm not sure he will.
Oh man,
this is actually getting very, very risky. This is coming into that cycle part, and great block on the bridge here that he needs to be ready for the snowball. He needs to Electro Spirit and log here. I don't know if he has it. There it is. Is it enough though? I'm not 100% sure. He gets caught by the Ewiz like it always will, and he needs to go very, very offensive here. Every miner should be accompanied by a fireball, or if not, it won't get any damage.
There you go, fireball in on top of that Hunter. Miner goes to the back. Mortar is locked on top of the Fisherman. Snowball in up front. Fireball in the back end. 102. Just waiting for those skeletons to come in.
Oh my God.
Get on top of the Miner. 254. 254. It connects, and that is going to do it. Oh my goodness.
I can't.
Somehow. What just happened, Eric?
The graveyard placement. What was that? What was that? He put the graveyard so high up and so close to the King Tower that 4 of his skellies actually went to go activate the King Tower, and none of them spawned near it. That was... I can't believe what I just saw. It was all about the graveyard placement. He had so many skellies spawn up top because of how high he put it. He even activated the King Tower in a match that's not 2v2, right? Because in 2v2 we saw it happen before, but it's hard to do in 1v1, and I cannot believe that was kind of like a meltdown right there.
I mean, we were saying it during the game. There's no way to come back from this. You're down 1900 HP to 800 against a P.E.K.K.A. graveyard with a Goblin Hut to boot, and just an incredible turnaround. There's the first time we see Aslan struggle with the deck. P.E.K.K.A. graveyard. We see him do it one more time. Rinse and repeat here for Blairon. It seems like smooth sailing here from our player from Kosovo, but then game 3 happens, and Aslan very, very much in control of this game, and that's where the BM started coming out, Eric.
Yeah, and I think it was more of a frustration BM than it was actually like anything else, any like bad intention BM. I think Aslan was just overall frustrated with the matchups he was getting, and that's when the BM really started. It came out before he even won a match, right? So usually when it's like bad intention BM, you wait till you actually win a match and then you start off with it. And look at that placement on the graveyard. That cannot happen.
I just don't know. Where is it? Why is it way up there? And Aslan very, very happy to turn this set around. That is a brutal... I mean...
I went full coach mode on that one.
I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the mortar connected. I couldn't believe so many things that had happened there in that very last game. And you can see that once again, Eric, we talked about it many, many times. that one deck being your hamstring, your Achilles heel, making it so you cannot move on through 3 P.E.K.K.A graveyards from Blairon.
That hurts, man. And it's not even, usually we see it that third deck being a deck that cannot win. It just matches up terribly. That was a great matchup. He had the game won. Like I said, he could have just simply graveyard naked with the fireball and the snowball, and it would have been game over. And that's what happens when in Clash Royale, maybe the nerves kick in, because that's the only thing I could really say on that graveyard placement. There's no way he did that purposely. I think he got a little nervous, he got a little anxious, and just wanted to get it down, quickly pressed it, and it just missed completely.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just can't I can't figure out what happened there other than it had to be a panic mode button. I mean, just had to be a panic mode situation, and we've all been there before, and hopefully Blairon can recover, because we will see more of him today. But Aslan ends up coming out with a very, very impressive reverse sweep here over Blairon, and doing it in a very impressive fashion with that last matchup.
It sure was. It was very, very impressive, and I don't think any of us expected it, especially you and I. We both said once that match went to 800 HP on his tower, we were just like, there's no way this is gonna happen. I still don't know what went wrong to even get to that point, because he was up so much that there was still a lot that had to be done for him to even catch up. And I don't remember where all that damage came in. Some mortars connected, which they should have never have, because that you have that E-Wiz. You should be resetting that every single time if it does lock onto your tower. Just complete, you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is. You already lost. Now you have to focus on moving on to the next round, which you haven't been eliminated yet.
And there was that moment where there was a completely let go miner, so that, you know, Blairon could double down on his offense, get a graveyard down, and it was just so well defended. So here we go. That's that. This is this. Demon Chocolate and Gas are going to battle it out to see who faces Aslan and who faces off against Blairon. Obviously, winner going to go up to Aslan. The person who loses this BO5 will go to face Blairon. And this is what we saw from Demon Chocolate last time. What do you think about these decks, and what do you think specifically? I don't think we'll see the top one there, but the bottom Royal Giant deck, Eric, it's a very good deck, but we haven't quite seen a lot of it over the last few days.
It comes down to what we've talked about a little bit. It seems like GameStars meta itself has shifted away from the traditional meta that we're seeing in the game right now, and I really like all 3 of these decks. I think they're fun to watch, they're fun to play, and they do work out well. They have that Mother Witch, they have those Elite Barbarians, and they're 3 completely different types of decks, which usually end up being the right decision in this format.
Gas on the other side of it, hopefully he got some help with his deck selection. He did very, very well with his Electro Giant decks. He played them very well. As you can see, 75% on the bottom and 60% there from the one in the center of your screen. But the top of the screen, Eric, what exactly is the idea behind this dual lane pressure, no win condition deck?
I'm trying to get an answer for you. I don't see it, my friend. Why? It is my only question. Why? Where are the Hoggies? Like, there is no reason you should play that deck without Hoggies, because one, it's not a bridge spam deck, so it's not like you can apply pressure at any time. They can always sit back and wait for you, and then they could just easily defend everything. I'm not really sure the idea behind it, but I hope that's the one change he did. I don't mind him going double Electro Giant, because if you play it well, we know that it's very, very good.
So there we go. King Tower activation. Fireball comes in on top of that Mother Witch. Demon Chocolate goes Royal Hogs right away. Flying Machine out in defense, along with a Goblin Cage. And yeah, it almost feels like when you look at that old deck of Gas, it was like he did a copy deck, and it didn't actually copy over all 8 cards, only 7 of them. And maybe the Spear Goblins should have been replaced with Royal Hogs or something like that. But here we go. Gas, bottom of your screen, looking kind of similar to what we saw from that deck. Maybe he decides to put the Hogs in this time, and Demon Chocolate out at the top. Mother Witch and Royal Hogs and Zappies. We're going to see a lot of dual lane action going on over the next 4.5 minutes.
And we're about to find out. The recruits should come down here. I don't know if he has any other defense. There's the recruits, and it's the moment of truth. Did you put the Hoggies in, or are you going to go with the Mother Witch? This is about all it is. And I hope, look, when you look back on your performance, if you had 2 decks with 75% win rate and one with 17% win rate, why repeat it, right? Why not make a change? He decides he's gonna go the same exact deck. It's all about whether he actually put a win condition this time.
Yeah, let's really hope he sees a win condition here. I don't love that bar barrel. Royal Hogs come down on the left-hand side as the Flying Machine connects on the right. Electro Spirit does get in to mitigate a little bit of damage, but 1853 is the remainder after a missed defense there, and I believe that defense was all a little short because of that bar barrel that came out just earlier, just moments ago on the Flying Machine. Really no use for that.
Absolutely. And here's the Mega Knight coming down from the back. He knows that he's in a good position. He knows that he's not going to get attacked on right now because Gas already used up everything. He had used the recruits. He needed them for the elite barbarians. And I actually really like this push because he needs to put the recruits down, and overall it's going to get a lot. Oh no.
And you hate to see it. The Zappy does you dirty. Gas putting his hand up like, what just happened? Well, what happened, man, was that Zappy was not far enough away from the tower. Mega Knight leaps on through. That Mega Knight keeps one of the E-Barbs to the side, and that E-Barb also goes on through. Second Mega Knight coming down in the pocket. Zappy's at the bridge by both of the competitors, but a very healthy Mega Knight on the side of Gas, who is down one tower and about 2,100 damage.
Yeah, this is game over, and he does have Hoggies, so I applaud him for making the change. I don't know why he didn't, throw them down when he saw Mega Knight in the back and the elite barbarians. He doesn't really have any other DPS, and he didn't have that much elixir either. So why not go on the opposite lane and try to create some pressure and alleviate yourself from getting overpowered on the attack? Because he kind of just sat back while he saw so much elixir go down into one lane. I would have liked to see him push into that opposite lane a little bit more.
So Eric, I'm sure that most people at home have been in that exact same situation where you find yourself probably down maybe, let's say, 2 elixir, right? So you see your opponent drop a Mega Knight in the back, you're ticking to 9, then ticking to 10. So at that moment, you're like, I'm down 2 elixir. I don't know if I should go offensive. But in that moment, you have to, right? Because otherwise, all you're doing is just sitting back and letting them build this monstrous push, whereas if you at least tried to sell out a little bit on the opposite lane, a response would come out. So there would not be enough for E-Barbs plus Mega Knight in one lane.
There was just no way that he could defend well against those Hoggies without dropping to 0, right? So you saw Mega Knight, and then you're ticking, like you said, to 10, and maybe there you can hold on a little because you have that cage. As soon as you see those E-Barbs come down, you have to press. You cannot sit back because there's no defense that is going to allow you to actually defend, while Demon can just continue to pile things on because you never forced anything out of him.
Yeah, you needed to force that elixir earlier. You needed to force something out so that Fireball wasn't available or the E-Barbs weren't available. You can't have the E-Barbs and the Mega Knight work down one lane while you create no opposite lane pressure. So here we go. Gas bottom of your screen with that Mother Witch. Going to spawn some piggies here. Hopefully get 3 piggies on the board. Only gets 2. Cannon Cart falls off the wheels. A very aggressive push.
Yeah, this is already very, very aggressive, but I don't mind it. He knows that he has that cannon there. That Mother Witch is going to spawn some Hoggies if he gets lucky. That is another hit. Oh, it actually did not get a hit onto that. That's a little bit unfortunate for him, but it is locked onto tower and a good start.
Yeah, it would have been really nice if that bar barrel got in front of the piggy there for Gas, but still great damage in, over 1,000 done, and he does the right thing here. He drops an Electro Wizard on top of that Flying Machine, demands a response, mitigates damage, and finds himself up 1 elixir with 2 skeleton dragons to deal with.
Yeah, I don't mind this start at all for him. I just wouldn't defend here. Good that he's just sitting back, regaining that elixir. Make sure you stay ahead of him because you do have a bridge spam deck. You always want to be able to not only defend, but go on the attack when you see a small opening. And in order to do that, you need to have more elixir than your opponent for the majority of this game.
So Chocolate looking like he's running Lava Miner, Eric, as you can see with the other cards in the in play so far. Lava Hound does come down, and this is going to be really interesting. It looks like Gas is rocking what looks like a no-win condition deck again, which with, shades of bridge spam. And there's really only a couple ground responses here from Demon Chocolate. I'm wondering how Gas is going to be able to turn up the heat enough, though, because Barbs and the Goblin Hut make it very difficult.
My biggest problem in this matchup is that this used to be very, very good for the bridge spam deck when the cannon cart was a little bit faster, but now you cannot create the same amount of pressure with the cannon cart because even if he lavas in the back, it is so slow that by the time it actually crosses, he has enough elixir to defend it, and that loses a lot of its power when it comes to the bridge spam aspect.
Yeah, you can see there, cycled in the back. Goblin Brawler still connects to the tower. Fireball going to come out on top of that flying machine. I like that play there, and Cannon Cart going to take this miner off the board and finally make its way across the bridge. Magic Archer in as well. This is going to be a sellout push on the right-hand side. Magic Archer does connect with some of those piercing shots. That's huge.
It is huge, and you know, this all came down to something we didn't even speak about. But in that lava push, I think Demon thought this was going to be a no spell deck, and he threw the dragons with the flying machine all behind the lava, and then he saw the fireball come out, and that got so much value, destroyed the whole push, and gave him a counter push on top of that on the right. So it all came down to deck recognition where Demon lost this match. You need to understand what deck you're playing against. You need to do your homework, because that just cost him the whole match.
Yeah, that was a massive, massive fireball there, and it is a little bit surprising that neither of us pointed that out. Flying Machine connects on the tower. Lava Hound's still there. Fireball does go in, and Demon Chocolate almost steals it in the final moments there. Fireball being the main key to victory there for Gas, getting that big time fireball at the bridge. Otherwise, a pretty interesting game back and forth here. As you saw, Demon Chocolate kind of screamed back into competition there at the very end.
Yeah, he definitely did, and it all comes down to that extra fireball value he gave up. He needed to recognize, okay, this is a bridge spam, but it does have fireball. He's missing a card. He hasn't used it. If it was something else, if it was a troop, he probably would have spammed it already. Demon a little bit slow on recognition there, but now he knows exactly, Gas knows exactly what Demon has in store for him. He takes out a lava deck. I want to see what decks he has left, because if he does have that E-Giant deck, it's looking pretty nice for him if he kept it in his hand right now.
Yeah, I would be very surprised to see Gas not run back one of those E-Giant decks, and now that we've seen a couple of his decks come out, I would assume it's probably the one that he had the highest win condition with. I still am pretty medium on this deck, Eric. I mean, I think the biggest part of it being bridge spam and no win condition is that the cannon card is just too slow.
It definitely is. It's way too slow nowadays, but at least we saw a fireball. It's something I spoke about earlier on today, and it's, if you're gonna run this type of deck, at least put a spell in it, because you need to secure some damage. You cannot always rely on a Magic Archer lining up, because if you do play some of those better players, they won't allow you to line it up, especially if you don't have NATO in it.
Yes, exactly. Not having NATO to line up that Magic Archer makes it so much harder. And here we go. Flying Machine plus Miner go in. Royal Recruit's going to actually go to the back. One goes forward, and a very fortunate interaction for a moment for Gas, but Flying Machine still gets on the tower.
That's so unfortunate. When that Flying Machine connected, I thought it connected originally, and then it seemed like it retargeted. It was a very weird interaction. Not really sure what happened there, but every time that Flying Machine gets a connection for that long, it hurts, and it hurts a lot.
I would have loved to see maybe dual lane pressure here instead of it all just going in the same lane. Barb's easy cleanup there for Gas's push by Demon Chocolate. Had he gone maybe Barb Barrel plus Flying Machine right lane and Hogs left, he would have maybe gotten a little bit more damage out, but 1508 to 819 is where we sit.
And he really needs to take advantage of his Flying Machines. There is no fireball on Demon Chocolate's deck, so he needs to get extreme value out of that over and over again. It is your best card. That Mega Minion is going to connect. I'm not sure what the plan behind this defense was. It was clear that it was going to make a straight line to the tower, and he just gave up basically a free tower.
Zappies needed to be played high and inside to pull that Mega Minion over, and especially because those Zappies have a, you know, kind of a slow trigger time. If you drop those down there at the last second, they would have been able to get on the Mega Minion as well. So just a bit of a misplayed defense there by Gas. He is going to take this tower on the left-hand side, and he actually does have the lead when you talk about the two-tower game, 1288 to 1869. Demon Chocolate going to have to get creative here.
He is going to have to get creative, and what you were talking about earlier, those Zappies can go out in front. There's no problem. You know there's no Flying Machine on the other side. There should be no reason for you to be hiding them on the left or behind your tower, because there's nothing that's really going to do any damage to them. So this time around, he played it a lot better. He got a lot more damage, and right now he has to recognize, okay, once I can get that cage out of the way or the barbs, I should be good to go here. He decides to go in anyway, even though the cage is still there and the barbs. A little bit of a waste, in my opinion, of an offensive push. And now he could lava. If I'm Demon Chocolate here, I'm waiting for a lava, and I'm going all in.
I like that Gas got aggressive there with the Flying Machine. Flying Machine on top of Demon Chocolate's Flying Machine, not allowing a Lava Hound to get out in front. Zappy's played behind the King Tower. Royal Hogs go back in, and now, yeah, this is really good because the Cage had to get, it was one card out of cycle, so you see the Skeleton Dragons coming down first, then the Cage. Now we have a counter push coming towards the King Tower, which is pretty much ignorable by Gas. Lava Hound dropped in the back, and Gas now going to try to get back on offense as soon as possible.
Yeah, and at this point, I think if I'm Gas, I'm pouring in the Hogs over and over and over again. A little bit unfortunate with the timing there. I think he thought the barbs were going to come down as well, and he was going to be able to get extra value. But what you cannot do now is sit back. If you sit back, this could be a lot of trouble for you. So I like that he continuously pouring on, but he needs to be careful with that triple elixir. Once he can get 2 lavas down on the board at the same time, it could get really, really bad for him.
And Gas has done also a great job recognizing that those Zappies are a huge part of his success here. There's no way to get to him with the arrows. There's no way to get to him with the miners. Just keep stacking those Zappies, slow everything down, make your defenses easier. And that's great fireball value right there, but there's no fireball in cycle.
Yeah, he used it on the Flying Machine, and that's what Demon has to do. Even though you're sacrificing it over and over again, you don't really have a choice, and that is not a fireball that I like at all. Now he has a free Flying Machine. He needs to just cage. He doesn't recognize that he was going to go on offense, and he just lost.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been it right there, right? You see the Flying Machine connected on the tower. Lava Pup's there to tank. Demon Chocolate not happy about that. Should have recognized the sneaky play in the pocket. It's what Gas had to do to win that game, and he did everything just right in those final moments to secure his victory.
It's that prediction that we've seen out of the best. As much as you want to predict offensively, you need to predict defensively. And as soon as I saw the Flying Machine go down, I thought it was game over because I expected a cage to go down. And you saw that last minute miner, instead of caging first and securing the fact that you can get that push, it cost him the game. Gas recognized that that was the only play that was actually going to save him from losing this game. He did his part, and Demon didn't recognize that soon enough, didn't predict that defense, and another great game.
Yeah, a really fun back and forth between these guys. Demon Chocolate with his Lava Hound, he definitely a big fan of the lava. I liked what we saw out of Gas here. I'm very glad that there's the Royal Hogs in this deck, and I really enjoyed watching him kind of find his footing again in that game, right? He started off really strong, and then he kind of lost control, and then it was all about the Zappies, Eric. Those Zappies got so much value, and honestly, we saw it yesterday. Everyone that's watching here, if you guys weren't watching yesterday with the Firecracker, there's cards in the meta right now that if you can find places for them, the spells are so heavily Fireball plus something cheap that something like Firecrackers or something like these Zappies with these, you know, these exponentially harder to deal with Fireball bait decks. I don't know, man. I think that we're going to see a shift here with Firecracker and Zappies and cards like that coming firmly into the meta.
I really like the Zappies. I think they're super strong, especially against this type of deck. You're going to see that there's going to be a lot of value out of the Zappies as well versus the E-Giant, as long as he can place them the right way. Obviously, there he wasn't sure what he was going up against, so he just cycled them. But I don't expect him to allow that to happen ever again in this matchup. This matchup, if you can play those Zappies in the middle, you actually get a ton of value out of them, and you force out early nados, which help you defend a lot better later on.
And that's a very good start here for Demon Chocolate. When you talk about going up against this Electro Giant, it's very fortunate he was able to get that much damage in and find himself in a good elixir position. So now he can stay on the offense. And basically, I think his goal during single, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, is to try and basically get that tower down, because he knows once he gets to double, he's going to have to spend a lot more time defending. He's
going to have to spend a lot of time, but this deck actually defends very well against an Electro Giant. It's one of those matchups that you actually do enjoy, as even though it seems like it's tough because you say, oh, he's just gonna NATO the recruits and the Zappies, it buys you so much time anyway that you usually tend to defend very well. The Lightnings don't get as much value just because there's so many troops all together that you don't get the most value. You can't just Lightning the Cage and the Flying Machine, because those recruits are always going to come down as well, and those Zappies, so it gets a little bit tricky.
Yeah, trying to get a Lightning off, an effective Lightning, a value Lightning with this matchup is very difficult. Full send, left-hand side. Recruits, plus Royal Hogs, plus Flying Machine. That tower is probably going to go down, but we see actually a very strong defense there for a moment between the Ice Wizard and the Baby Dragon. Flying Machine does connect, and just like that, we see a clean defense top of your screen and a much lower tower on the bottom left-hand side for Gas.
It's those Zappies, man. They will not let that E-Giant get anywhere. It's incredible how effective they are as long as he can deal with that Dark Prince. Look at how much this E-Giant is going to struggle. Even with a NATO that might come in here, it just cannot get anywhere.
I love this deck selection by Demon Chocolate, knowing he's going to go up against Gas. Like you said, those Zappies really make it impossible to get a good lightning down, a good value lightning down. You can't look for a structure. And if your player is good that you're going up against, they're going to do exactly what you're seeing every time. It's going to get so muddled up in there with the Zappies, with the recruits, with the Flying Machine, and then Royal Hogs at the bridge, that picking that lightning and actually threading that needle becomes near impossible.
It is so hard, and that Flying Machine's going to connect on tower, and that's just, it's game over. He's holding on, but I just don't think that, unless we see a complete slip up, which the Flying Machine is back on tower. I don't know how many times people lose to Flying Machines, and it's the most frustrating way to lose because you know it's coming, but there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, it's all about this meta evolving. You know, we talk about the Royal Recruits, we talk about the Zappies. Flying Machine is so powerful right now, and you need to hold your Fireball for other cards. I mean, maybe we start to see Mega Minion coming back in the meta in other decks, right? I mean, Giant Double Prince, the EWIZ Mega Minion version, has actually climbed again on the Grand Challenge boards, and I'm assuming that the Flying Machine has a little bit to do with that, of course, along with the Princess dealing with the elite barbarians. But yeah, I'm feeling a shift coming, Eric.
I love it, and this is something that I said very early on when we got the balance changes, right? When you get 3-month balance changes, or however long, just a longer version, you will see the original meta, and then you see the counter meta, and then in the last 2 weeks you simply just see the best 5 decks solidify themselves, and that's what you keep on seeing over and over again. And right now I think we're seeing that counter meta, the shift into, okay, these decks are so strong, what is good against these decks? And then we're gonna see, you know, the top 5 decks solidify themselves by the time we get to the finals of this event.
So here we go, Electro Giant getting pushed by that Dark Prince. Flying Machine working on the Dark Prince now on that tower on the bottom right hand side of your screen. Lava Hound getting good damage in along with that Flying Machine.
Yeah, and it's a tower
go
trade
down on the other side. Yeah,
it's gonna be a simple tower trade here, and I'm not really sure who that benefits. Looking at this, it is a tricky matchup, because if you had the Elite Barbarians version of the Lava, I think you're a lot better positioned. But with these barbs, they always go down to that E-Giant without any extra help, so it is a lot tougher to actually defend. But he did get a really nice start overall.
Barbarian going to go out on that right-hand side, just doing anything he can to try and get that tower down. You see those Skeleton Dragons connected on the left-hand side, 21-35 to 25-34. Even Chocolate does give out the well played.
And as much as I don't mind, you know, like the tower trade, I would have actually liked to see him defend that Bar Barrel. I really would have. I think a 149 on the tower is as low as it seems. When you look at the deck you're going up against, NATOs don't do enough to take it down. You have a Bar Barrel which doesn't secure yourself getting on tower, and then every other card is so expensive, including the lightning, that it would have forced out something out of him. And I would have just liked to see that Bar Barrel actually get defended and see how Gas deals with that.
Yeah, it's a couple times today where we've seen people kind of sacrifice a tower when it feels like they could just defend a little bit more and make that harder for your opponent later on. I mean, one of the best things that you can do for yourself in this game is make it so your opponent has to overspend right as you hit overtime so that you can just take the second tower, right? If they just have to naked spell a tower late game at that moment, you know you have such a huge opening as soon as that goes into overtime. So Flying Machine here is defended by that Dark Prince, as is the Mega Minion and the Bar Barrel. Very, very nice Dark Prince there, but Flying Machine does connect with the tankage of that Mega Minion. A few more shots in.
And that was a very, very nice push. Way to recognize what your opponent has in his hand, and he actually barbed in the middle, and it seemed like he lavaed, right? Because it tanked so perfectly for everything else that he created so much pressure out of something that you would have never expected. And he's one cycle away from winning this match.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're just running into a wall of red. An ocean of red is gas here as that Electro Giant tries to work its way towards the tower. Now Miner going to go back into the backside of that tower. Good damage there, and it seems like this one's all sewn up.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why he tanked that whole Miner. You have a Dark Prince in hand. You have other things. You can't just tank that when your tower is that low. It was at 500. I understand what he's going for, but there's just way too much damage on the other side, and a Miner arrows here is game over.
Yeah, I felt like maybe hitting the panic button there a little bit, just not knowing what to do, not knowing how to get out of that. And just like that, we will see Demon Chocolate moving forward, and another one of our players who played very, very different archetypes than the first group of, our first BO5, and it was the same thing we saw yesterday. Now we've seen Beatdown be very dominant in GameStars this week, as well as Cycle.
And I think if you're, Aslan here, at least you're happy you're not going to get P.E.K.K.A Graveyards anymore. And on the other hand, you have P.E.K.K.A Graveyards, and we saw a lot of recruits, right? We saw a lot of decent matchups overall. So it could get tricky for wow, I just blanked out. I am so sorry, my friend Blairon. It could get tricky for him with the triple P.E.K.K.A deck choice here, and I'm really curious to see this matchups that are going to come out, because I think they're a lot closer and not as hard counters as we saw in the first matchup.
I mean, this entire highlight reel looks like a highlight reel for that flying machine.
Yeah.
Just sneaking in every single time. Literally every single one of these highlights for Demon Chocolate has to do with him and a flying machine on tower. You see there, Gas stealing that game, back-to-back games. He's up 2 going into game number 4. And there we go. Once again, flying machine on the tower for Demon Chocolate. And it's just rinse and repeat, a lot of the same thing as we continue through game number 5. Demon loved going to the skies. He loves using that flying machine, and this time you saw he did not have the flying machine, but that Miner got a lot of good work in, and you see a big time celebration there from a guy that was almost eliminated.
He is hyped up, and I love to see it. I love to see that emotion once the matches are over. In between the matches, we saw composure, but once you move on, go ahead and celebrate. You guarantee yourself at least making it to Friday, and at least giving yourself an opportunity. Whether you win or lose this next match, you know you're okay.
Yeah, and what a surprising turn of events here when you look at Gas's deck selection, and the one deck that he had the most success with, or the win condition that he had the most success with 60 and 70%, I believe, with his 2 respective decks, drops all the way down to 0. Just cannot battle it out in the skies there with Demon Chocolate. So a very fascinating matchup between Aslan and Demon, but first we're going to have to go to Blairon and Gas. It's going to be P.E.K.K.A Graveyard up against Gas, who is running, I think, much better decks than what we saw in his first day of competition. How do you think these guys are going to match up against one another, Eric?
I think I still like the P.E.K.K.A Graveyard decks overall. I don't mind them, but he needs to be very careful, especially against that bridge spam. You cannot Graveyard when you still have the Mother Witch on the field. You need to be very careful, and if you do that, which you can, it has to be in double or triple where you actually have enough elixir to fireball it off as soon as it goes down. That is the key to victory here for Blairon. And on the other end, you are going to struggle with that same bridge spam deck that I just said to actually get through, especially against that Goblin Hut E-Wiz Fisherman Hunter deck.
Yeah, that's very difficult. I'm curious what deck Gas runs out first. I guess maybe he goes with his Mother Witch deck just because he knows Graveyard is in every single one of his opponent's decks, so maybe he just looks for that slight matchup advantage there. I think he probably shelves his Electro Giant for the moment. He had a lot of struggles with that in his previous set that we just saw against Demon Chocolate, and plus he knows his opponent has P.E.K.K.A in all of his decks, Zappy's in 1, and of course Fisherman in all 3, as well as a Building in 1. So that Electro Giant deck, Eric, I don't know how he's going to pick up a win with it today, and he has to.
I'm looking at the decks right now, and the only one I kind of see some chance with is that Royal Recruits deck, and as much as I said I don't think it's that hard of a counter, now that I look at it, this could be a 3-0 if he plays the way he played the first 2 games. If Blairon plays the way he started off against Aslan, this could be a 3-0. If he plays the way he ended it, he does have a chance, because we saw him struggle a little bit. I don't know if it was a mental. I hope he, went outside, took a breather, reset, and goes back at it fully. I would like to see him maybe get rid of that first deck, that last deck that he used first up here.
Yeah, it did feel like it was a bit of mental fortitude because he started off so strong against Aslan. It almost felt like he got overconfident, which is another thing, as you know, as a coach, you never want your players to do. You called it during that set. It's never over till it's over. We saw a reverse sweep, and you talk about mental fortitude on the front end. You can't get overconfident. You got to talk about it during it when you realize, oh my gosh, this guy tied up the set 2-2. And then exactly what you just said. After the fact, after you have that horrible loss, after you get reverse swept, you got to remember to go out, reset, come back. And if he plays, like you said, if he plays like he did in those first 2 games, I expect we will see a very quick set here, because when you talk about matchups specifically, you got to give the favoritism to, of course, the guy with 3 P.E.K.K.A.s.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, I like this. Okay. I had just texted him, start off with this deck. And he did. This is very, very nice out of him, because you know that if he can get this out of the way, get that mental block that he has with it out of the way here early on, it seems like he'll be in a very nice position.
Here we go. Ice Wizard working its way up this left-hand side of the screen. Fisherman there behind those goblins to try to help this out. Ice Wizard's going to get pulled across that side of the map, and of course a Hunter going to be here to deal with that Dark Prince.
And we're seeing both players kind of come out with the deck they most struggled with. And I don't mind it. I actually think E-Giant wise, this might be the best matchup out of all of them, because that Goblin Hut is a little bit easier to deal with and gives you a little bit more lightning value when you do get it than the cages themselves. But you still have Fisherman to deal with, so anytime that E-Giant does lock onto tower, if it gets there, he can cop out with Fisherman to the King Tower.
So looking for that interaction will be Blairon. Gas here going to play very slow and steady here in single elixir.
And yeah, I think they're both gonna play very slow. The key to victory for Blairon in this matchup is never drop your P.E.K.K.A. until you see an E-Giant. We saw it before, and the people that have lost it are the people that P.E.K.K.A. before an E-Giant goes down.
Yeah, there's no reason to drop that P.E.K.K.A. until you see that E-Giant come down, and until then, you just got to be okay. Get Goblin Hut chip damage, get Snowball chip damage, get a little bit of counter push chip damage where and when you can, but never pull the trigger on that P.E.K.K.A. early, as we saw him do in his earlier set.
Yeah, there's no real reason he needs to do anything. He doesn't need to force out any response. You should get graveyard damage every single time. And that early lightning might be an opening for Blairon to actually start pushing a little bit more here, but always save your P.E.K.K.A. If you want to try and make things happen with your other troops, go for it. Maybe cycle back to another hut, but you need to also be careful, because I actually like what Gas did. If he's giving you those huts for lightning value onto the tower, take them over and over again.
Yeah, agreed. That lightning value was a no-brainer there for Gas. It also takes the Ewas off the board. Goblin Hut going to come back down. Lightning going to come back in. Easy money there. And that's going to be a moment where Blairon's going to start to feel the heat of those lightnings coming down and recognizing that he can't just play that battle forever. 2006 to 2075. Ooh. And now that P.E.K.K.A. comes down in the center there in front of the Hunter. Dark Prince going there as well. Ewas, everything working towards that left-hand side. Ice was setting up, and I believe an Electro Giant should go down on the right-hand side once we see a good defense here.
Yeah, I was just about to say, we're just waiting on that lightning, and then now he has to be careful, because even though this game is still anyone's, these Goblin Huts, I don't like them, man. He's gonna give lightning value over and over again, or just lose them instantly. And look how easily he's losing them. That Hunter's also gonna go down, possibly. It doesn't, but it's not going to do much either. So he needs to be very, very careful. And this should be an E-Giant on the right. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. P.E.K.K.A. set up in the back. Goblin Hut out of cycle. You see the Fisherman come down. Gas maybe forgot about the Fisherman. Now the P.E.K.K.A. going to work right into the E-Giant. Maybe Blairon set him up for failure here, baiting that out of his opponent, setting the P.E.K.K.A. up there. And you see Dark Prince connecting on the right-hand side, but that's okay. Now Hunter and P.E.K.K.A. working down the left-hand side. Graveyard finally comes down.
This is all coming down to the fact that he didn't predict the Fisherman. And it comes back to what we spoke about earlier, right? You need to win those Fishermans. You need to understand that the only way that he survives that is a Fisherman towards the P.E.K.K.A. Why is that Dark Prince not going in the middle, right? That Dark Prince isn't going to help you against anything else. That should have gone straight in the middle, distract the Fisherman, or at least, look, if you missed it, you missed it. It's okay. There's no problem. But you need to take that risk.
Yeah, really, really important to recognize that that's the only way. If your opponent's going to go for something that aggressive, it's the only way for them to get that Electro Giant off the tower. You got to look for that Fisherman. And once again, that Fisherman paying dividends here. And we see Gas with the tilt of the head. Graveyard going to come back down on that left-hand side. You see him kind of let out that laugh, just being like, man, how did I forget about that Fish Boy doing me so dirty and in all of your decks? Or I guess maybe 2 of his 3 decks?
I think they're in all of them, which is not a good sign because the other ones actually have Cage instead of the Goblin Hut, so you can't just lightning it like you were doing earlier in this game. It's only going to get harder for him. And I think this is tough. This is actually going to be very, very tough for him, especially if he plays well like he just did.
So that was maybe the matchup that Gas wanted to get away from, but he decides to open up with it. So now I think maybe he goes to that bottom deck. I do think that that's the place for him to maybe find the opening the most with the Mother Witch on the graveyard. But as you also just saw there from Blairon, very, very happy to sit back and wait for a very long time. And even so much so that he was in Gas's head. He was able to figure out exactly how Gas is going to go on offense, bait out that Electro Giant, pull it to the other side of the map, and GG, well played, moving on.
That's exactly it. And Blairon, as long as like you said, he has that Mother Witch, as long as Blairon can always hold that Fireball and just wait until that double triple elixir to actually graveyard and then be able to Fireball the Mother Witch along with the graveyard, he should be okay to actually win the next game as well, because it's going to be so hard for Gas to actually do any damage. And even if you do lose, you know that you should be able to beat this E-Giant deck over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think honestly, if you're Gas, you got to just set this E-Giant back on the back burner and just try to pick up wins with your other decks, and then see if we can see what we saw yesterday, which was we saw an E-Giant deck play through a very, very difficult matchup and pick up the W because the opponent misplaced a building, opponent misplaced a unit, whatever it is. And I think the other thing too is that we need to see better spell value out of Gas here. We need to see him do better work with the Lightnings and the NATOs.
Yeah, we definitely do. And I don't think we saw many effective NATOs at any point in the game. And yeah, there wasn't that much to use it on, but you still want to try to go for it. Maybe you can even predict the Fisherman with the NATO before it actually starts swinging that anchor out, or that fish, if you want to say it. You can actually pull it. Once it starts swinging it, it is basically a structure. You cannot move it, but it all comes down to predictions. Make that play.
So game number 2 coming your way. We know that Blairon's going to go P.E.K.K.A. Graveyard again. We know that Gas has 2 other options on top of this Electro Giant deck. I think, again, he really should turn away from it. And Blairon did seem to play much more like what we saw out of him early on in his earlier set, which was calm, poised, spell damage, cycling intelligently. And I do wonder if, you know, a better player maybe sees that moment with the Fisherman and just sees right through it, and then that Electro Giant still gets on tower. But you know, in this moment it worked out well. It
did. Yeah, he put himself in a risky position playing the P.E.K.K.A. where he did. He got fortunate that it didn't get predicted, and then the rest of the game was just clinical. He knew exactly what to do, and here we're gonna see that bridge spam, and I'm curious to see if he's able to actually get any damage with it.
Yeah, it's gonna be very, very difficult. And this is the deck with the Mother Witch, but Blairon, I'm sure, aware of that. Probably not going to just drop those graveyards carelessly.
Yeah, and he needs to actually be careful as well with the Magic Archers going up against Fisherman, because we do know that there is a King Tower activation, which isn't all that hard. So he can never just Magic... The value on this Magic Archer is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy. Magic Archer still on the board. Going to take those zappies off. Electro Wizard also going to get more damage. Magic Archer going to pierce through the tower. Does not get any more piercing damage on the tower, but is still somehow on the board. And that cannon cart sneaks in front of the bar barrel.
Yeah, but that is all due to the lack of patience. Let that Magic Archer go through, man. You just wait 1 second and then drop the troop. He gave up so much damage there, and why not activate King Tower with your Fisherman? You need to be comfortable in those positions. You need to, you know, really have confidence in your abilities. There should have been a Fisherman come down to pull that Magic Archer that was alone. Activate your King Tower, because you're going up against bridge spam. You have that bandit, you have all those troops that will eventually get to your tower, and that extra damage is going to help a lot.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Knowing that there's that available on the board, we'll see if Gas decides to change up where he drops those Magic Archers, if he plays them a little bit more carefully. And the other thing that we saw a lot in this matchup was that when he ticks to 10, he drops the cannon cart in the back. Makes a lot of sense. Takes forever for that cannon cart to make it all the way across the bridge.
Yeah, and the good thing for him is that he will get a lot of value out of these P.E.K.K.A.s. You've said it many times. When you have a P.E.K.K.A. against the elite barbarians, you take care of them. The P.E.K.K.A. still has some health, and especially if he drops a cannon cart in the same lane, that is a lot of elixir value.
Zappy split in the back. Bandit going to dash onto that Goblin Cage. Magic Archer going to get some piercing damage on that Brawler, but none on the tower, and we get a good left lane counter push here coming in from Blairon.
And he's just gonna have to pick his moments. This is all about one good push for Blairon, and on the other end, you can never stop pressuring, because the second you do is gonna be that moment for Blairon to say, okay, you gave me a little room to work with here, I'm gonna go graveyard. You don't have any great defenses versus it, because I'm gonna fireball your Mother Witch. And he needs to be very careful to never let go of the gas.
So here we go. Push on that right-hand side. E-Barb will connect on that tower. Zappies have to come down, but E-Barb damage is there from Blairon, and that is a huge mistake by Blairon from a guy that was able to sit back and get spell damage in. Now has to create a moment at some point throughout these next 2 minutes, because he had the spell damage battle won, but now there's no way he can get that much spell damage done in 2 minutes without Gas doing anything about it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And there, that P.E.K.K.A., as even though it seemed well, the Fisherman was actually lined up to activate King Tower. So I'm not really sure why he did that. And I do really like that he had the Fireball ready for the Mother Witch. This P.E.K.K.A.'s gonna connect.
Wow. Yes, man. The P.E.K.K.A. connects. Ewiz there, Mother Witch there, Magic Archer there, Fireball comes in, no cleanup in time, and we're at a 2-0 position, and we're looking very close to what you were saying might happen in this set. Yeah,
as long as he keeps playing well, and he's been very patient. That's what I love that I've seen out of him. A lot of players in this competition have tried to win too early. Blairon seems like he knows exactly what he has to do. In both of these matches, he has not been the one to, you know, initiate that offense. He sits back, and once it's time to go, he goes and he wins the match. He's playing perfect right now.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm hoping that we'll see the same thing out of him in this next game, right? Because this is where we were earlier today. He goes up 2-0. He plays very well with these first two P.E.K.K.A. decks, and then he struggled to close things out. Obviously, with Gas, he's got that great bit of fortune to look forward to with that Electro Giant matchup, but he needs to keep playing the way that he's been playing through these first two games.
He definitely does, and if he does lose this one game, he needs to be very careful with his mentality. This is where a lot of the players' mentalities, you know, when you already got reverse swept, you go up 2-1, you lose one, and it starts creeping into your mind again. You have to be very careful to not let those thoughts, you know, get overwhelming.
So Gas here going to give a little bit of poison value away to Blairon. You see already maybe in his head, it's early on, it's okay, just a little bit of poison value in, you're still up in elixir. And Gas going right back to that no-win condition, or excuse me, to that bridge spam no-win condition deck.
The only issue that I see here for Blairon, which makes this match a little bit tougher, because essentially it's almost the same type of matchup, is the fact that he cannot just get rid of that Mother Witch. He has poison, so it's a slow burn. We know the way it works, and that Mother Witch will actually be able to defend the full graveyard before it goes down. Before, he had that cop-out of, okay, I'm just gonna Fireball, and this is gonna be wiped off the board, and then I have a free graveyard. He no longer has that.
I like that cannon cart coming down to catch the Fisherman there. Magic Archer getting a lot of good value here. Nothing there to catch the Ewiz, but that's okay. Value already in here for this Magic Archer.
Yeah, and this will hit once, I believe. There it is, and that's actually very important damage, because you're going up against bridge spam that generally doesn't take that much damage off your own tower.
Baby Dragon cycle the right-hand side. Ewiz works its way down the left. Barb Barrel to defend out either direction.
And
need a little bit more from Gas.
Yeah, this should be the way the match goes over and over until someone, you know, either messes up a placement or finds a good moment to go in for Blairon. But Blairon's just gonna do this for the rest of the match. He plays very defensive, and that's what he should do. I'm not really sure about a P.E.K.K.A. in the back. It might work out late game for him, and a poison, a weird poison coming in, but overall it's okay.
Yeah, oh, the cannon cart. Oh my goodness. Cannon cart connects on the tower. E-Barb is there. That's going to be towered down just like that. A massive misstep there by Blairon. and he's starting to feel that curse of the third game coming in, just struggling with his interactions late in a set, and it feels like for no reason.
I think it comes down to that P.E.K.K.A in the back. There was no real reason for it, and as much as I was just commending him on sitting back, that is exactly what we don't want to see out of him, because how easily would that P.E.K.K.A would have defended that push, right? He had elite barbarians and a cannon cart. You toss that in front of everything and boom, defended. Instead, he put it in the back, and then he had nothing to defend with.
This is still going to be a big uphill climb for Gas, who finally picks up his first game win there in game number 3. That was his best matchup, what felt like by a mile. I guess the next best deck he goes to is his Royal Recruits deck, just because he knows he's going to have to deal with P.E.K.K.A. He knows he's going to have to deal with Graveyard. But no matter what, at the end of the day, if he does make it to game 5, Eric, he's got to win with that Electro Giant deck, which just feels impossible in this matchup.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue here. It's the fact that he has to win with that deck. The matchup itself is so tough with the Goblin Cage, with the P.E.K.K.A always being available, and as long as Blairon doesn't do what he just did, he should be able to win that much. The only way he loses it is P.E.K.K.A-ing, because I'm pretty sure at this point Gas knows, okay, I am not gonna let myself lose to a Fisherman again. That will never happen. So maybe Gas is the one that sits back more with that E-Giant matchup and waits for Blairon to get a little bit impatient and P.E.K.K.A.
That's a really good call, and that's probably what I would do if I was Gas. If I was Gas, I would sit back and let him do what he has been doing. He has been making those mistakes of trying to get over aggressive with his P.E.K.K.A when he doesn't need to. We talked about this a lot in the week 2, or second week of competition, Eric, where people are not confident enough to sit back and let what's been working carry them home to victory.
Absolutely. That is a very, very, very good point. If you for 4 minutes are winning the game doing a certain thing, have the patience for that last minute, because you're gonna win. All you have to do is rinse and repeat. And Blairon, it's not just this game that he lost. The game that he won, he did the same thing. He just got away with it because that Fisherman wasn't predicted.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good call that you make there. And so maybe Gas looking for a little light at the end of the tunnel. He gets some life breathed back into him there in game number 3, picks up a win here, and now he goes to that deck that we were just talking about. That Royal Recruits deck here is going to do well against this P.E.K.K.A. He's going to drop that ideally right behind the P.E.K.K.A to get on top of that Fisherman as he ticks to 7. There he goes, but the problem is that he really wanted to get that Flying Machine down, and as you said, Eric, just too late.
Yeah, you cannot sacrifice one thing to get another unless you know the timing will be there. And at that point, I think he wanted to defend so perfectly that he actually mistimed it. But this is a type of push that I really, really like when you have this. Just a little bit unfortunate that the Flying Machine crossed the bridge before the Hoggies actually went through.
Yeah, Barb Barrel, though, does come in and do some good damage on that Electro Wizard. 1490 to 1734. Fisherman now out of cycle, but Fisherman really not a pivotal part of this matchup because of those Royal Recruits.
Yeah, exactly that. And those push with the Flying Machine Hoggies are going to be so tough for Blairon to defend because there's no Fireball and the poison just isn't good enough. There's nothing really for the poison to get value other than if Gas plays those Flying Machines behind the tower like he did originally. And that could actually be very, very bad for him. He needs to recognize now in double elixir, Blairon will have enough for that poison onto the Flying Machine and Recruits. So I cannot keep doing that.
Yeah, and it's going to make it even more difficult to get those Royal Hogs down behind that. That's a lot of poison value, as you can see, all in that right-hand lane. So he goes Royal Hogs to the left-hand side. And what is that Graveyard, Eric?
Yeah.
Look at that. That is going to do it right there. A misclick, a misplay.
That hurts.
And just like that, Blairon is even again, finding himself in this horrible position of going up 2, then going down 2, and finding himself in a game 5.
Yeah, and that's just a misclick. There's nothing else to it. Yeah, it happens, man. It happens. That's part of playing a Clash mobile game, right? Your finger slips. It drops way down there when you're trying to drag it all the way up. And it seemed like that tower was going to go down if he was able to get that Graveyard. I don't think he would have defended it. But at this point, it's all about, okay, let me continue in this set. It happened. Will he have the mental fortitude, right? Because this is nightmares coming back at you. You were already, this happened to you earlier today. You were up 2-0, you went to 2, you lost this set. Blairon, how mentally strong are you? Because it's all gonna happen here, and he could still win this somehow. I don't know, but you know.
He goes super aggressive there with the Fisherman. On top of that Goblin Cage, of course, Zappies plus a Bar Barrel there to respond. Royal Hog's going to come out opposite lane and basically just delaying the inevitable is Blairon after that really poorly misplayed graveyard. Really unfortunate. We've all been there before.
Yeah, and I mean, somehow he still hasn't lost the game. It's that King Tower activation that's really saving him. But like you said, it seems like he's delaying the inevitable. And at this point, I'm not sure why Gas is trying to make pushes instead of just cycling fireballs. And
oh my goodness,
he might actually lose this game.
He misses the pickup on the Baby Dragon there. The graveyard does come in. Poison is down for Blairon. We see this push come in. Bar Barrel there on top of the cage. was behind 100% mitigation once again. No, Hog does get one big time hit in, but that's not enough yet, Eric.
It's not enough, and this Baby Dragon is actually going to tank if he can get a poison here onto everything. This is very, very sketchy for him. I can't believe what I just saw.
Barbarian does get taken off the board. 182 to 263. Too early on that Ewiz. Hogs are back in. Yeah, Ewiz too early. Bar Barrel not in cycle. Although the King Tower activation might be enough to stop that Hog from taking the tower down. Fireball, though, gonna come in just in time as that poison ticks down. Where's the Fireball? Where's the Fireball? Where's the Fireball?
Hello? Hello? Gas?
Did Gas DC?
I think he DC'd.
What happened?
Either that or it glitched out of his deck and there's no longer a fireball. He had to have disconnected.
I mean, that's it. That's the set.
I don't know what to say.
I don't know either. It looks like either Gas disconnected or he couldn't get the fireball out in time. Blairon, I have no words.
Blairon, no congratulations, my friend. You survived the reverse sweep again. Fortunate, yes. Unfortunate. It seemed like he had a very unfortunate situation where the graveyard misclicked and then a little bit of fortune on the disconnect, right? It happens. Like we just said, it happens to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Clash Royale gods throwing a little bit of love your way. We see the misplayed graveyard earlier on. Somehow, he plays some incredible defense for over a minute and is able to get that tower down low enough to let a slow ticking poison take the tower due to a, I believe, disconnected opponent. Just heartbreaker there for Gas.
Yeah, that's horrible for Gas. It hurts. It definitely hurts. But there's nothing you can do. At the end of the day, we've seen it happen to so many players, and not only here in CRL, in CCGS, it happens to everyone. It's a little bit of, you know, that part of playing mobile games, and it's very, very unfortunate. You never like to win or lose like that, right? Because when you win like that, it doesn't even feel like a win.
Yeah, you see Blairon there not really celebrating, and you get a little smile out of him, but as you can see at the bottom of your screen there in the replay, it was very clear that Gas had more than 10 elixir. He was actually leaking elixir at that moment, so not only would he have been able to get a fireball out on the tower to take the tower down and take the set, but he would have also been able to drop something on the ground to probably tank for that Baby Dragon. So a bit of misfortune goes both ways here in our third best of 5 for the day. Blairon will move on to further his run in the Gamestars League. We'll see more of him on Friday. Gas, though, eliminated from contention and maybe going to go have a word with his internet provider as we get ready for our fourth and final set of the day between Aslan and Demon Chocolate. Two very, very different competitors, two pretty different play styles as well.
Aslan, if I'm your coach here, I'm telling you, you better win this, because that decider match versus Blairon, those matchups are not looking good, my friend. I don't think you get away with it again. So for me, Aslan is going all in here. This is his elimination match. You do not want to go back and play that 3 P.E.K.K.A.s with the decks that you have. It's not going to end up well for you.
That's a really important point that you make. I mean, yes, he did get away with one there, and as Blairon, you just saw he got away with one in his own set. I can't imagine if we saw the exact same best of 5 that we saw earlier today that Blairon would make the same mistakes that he did. So I agree. I think Aslan has to make this a must-win set for him, or else it's going to be a lot of trouble as he runs into that guy that he ran in at the top of the show today. But that's neither here nor there. What is here right now is Demon Chocolate and Aslan, and one guy that's going to be taken to the skies, and another guy who's been playing a little bit more traditional and who honestly had an incredible bounce back reverse sweep.
Yeah, he definitely did. So he has to be feeling good. Whenever you reverse sweep, it gives you that double confidence of not only did I win, but I reverse swept. I was in the toughest position possible and I came back. So that adds more confidence than just winning. And here we have the decks that they'll be playing.
Yeah, how do you feel about these matchups? You have Fireball in every single deck here from Aslan, but as we know, Fireball was usually there and readily available by his opponents in his prior sets, but the Flying Machines every single time sneaking in by Demon Chocolate. If you look at the bottom, or excuse me, the left-hand side of your screen, not a lot of great air defenses here for Aslan.
There's not a lot of great air defenses, but I think where Demon might struggle a little bit is in a big Mega Knight Night Witch push on the bottom, and then a split lane with the RG push as well might be a little bit hard for him to defend, especially if he can get some good fishermen's. Aslan will once that RG goes down. Once that RG goes down, it'll either get defended by the Mega Knight or the Elite Barbarians. He needs to have that fisherman ready, and then he'll actually be able to get some damage. But overall, if I had to pick a deck slots that I would like to use, I would probably go Demon over Aslan.
Yeah, I agree. It does feel like he's maybe got a slight advantage here. If I'm Aslan, I might actually come out first with his lowest win condition deck, try to get it out of play as soon as possible. It's got a couple good air counters there, and then maybe try to pick up that win, because as you said, moving forward, I do believe those other two decks have a little bit better of a matchup, but maybe he can outplay Demon in game one with that mortar, with his air defenses, spreading those units out, and just get minor chip damage through.
Yeah, and I think like we just said, he does have a slight advantage, but it's not as rough as the first set was for Aslan. These are all winnable matchups, which at this point is all you can ask for. If you're Aslan, it'll come down to who plays better. And I think at the beginning, Demon played very well in his set. Then he had a couple mistakes. Aslan didn't seem to have that many mistakes. He just had impossible matchups. So if Aslan can continue the top tier gameplay, he might be okay and win this set.
Yeah, I mean, do you have a selected deck from either of these guys that you think they should start their set with, or do you think it just kind of depends on how that first game goes?
I would definitely go the Mega Knight deck if I'm Demon, because I do have that Night Witch. It matches up well against the graveyard, it matches up well against the mortar, and it has enough damage dealers and the zappies as well to stop the RG in its tracks. So I think overall the best matchup you get is with that Mega Knight. You can win all three of them, and I would like to secure a victory to start off.
All right, so maybe we see Mega Knight out first from Demon Chocolate. Maybe it goes back to Valkyrie Mortar first from Aslan. Be coming back to us for just a minute as these guys get ready for their games. When you talk about the understanding of the macro, it does feel like Aslan's understanding of the macro is pretty exceptional when you talk about the general level of competition at Gamestars League. Demon Chocolate, it feels, is it a little more, do you think it's around the same level, or do you think it's just a very different style of play? What do you think about that when you talk about the macro understanding of Clash?
I think Aslan has a bit of a favor in that understanding, and it could come down to experience. You learn. Clash is a game that, as smart as you are, as good as you are at video games, everything, it takes time. No one is just good at Clash. It doesn't happen. There's so many different mechanics. There's so many different decks, strategies, ways of playing everything, that it really comes down to experience. And Aslan, I just think, has that edge over him. He has played a lot of the qualifiers, ladder, all this, and that's where you really learn with Clash.
I was really impressed by him too. You know, we talked about mental fortitude a good amount with Blairon, but Aslan was a guy that even when he was down those two games, it really didn't seem like he was ever out of it. It didn't seem like he'd ever really given up on himself. And as you saw by that great turnaround, that's exactly what he did. So Aslan is going to go with that deck that I was calling out. It's going to be his minor mortar deck. Valkyrie up high there, Spear Goblins behind. Demon Chocolate going to go to the skies.
Very nice Fireball to get a lot of value out of it. And this is very nice chip damage for a minor deck. That is a lot, but this is a lava deck, and it is going to be tough later on in the game to actually get damage, especially seeing as he does have arrows in it, if I'm not mistaken, for those Spear Goblins.
Yes, I believe arrows are in that deck, and we see a mortar come out in response to that Goblin Cage. Mortar out of cycle. We know Musketeer is in the hand of Aslan. We go Miner to the back of the tower there as the Lava Hound sets up in the left-hand lane, and the Mortar gets a good shot in.
I'm surprised he just let that connect like that, and basically he's almost lost the tower already. And I don't mind it usually. I don't mind tower trades, but the way the tower trade came down was so cheap for Aslan that it's looking a bit weird, really.
Yeah, and you see there the arrows coming out instantly for that Electro Spirit plus the Musketeer. Good damage in, though, still only about 400 HP separating these two, and you can see Aslan not super excited about how that defense went.
Yeah, he's not super excited, but he can't be angry with it either. If you put yourself in this position early on in the game, right? If I tell you, look, you're going to go up against Lava, it's going to be a tough matchup. And going into double elixir, you're basically in a 2-tower game. Or possibly if you defend this, you already have a tower and they're still fighting for yours. You cannot be mad.
Valkyrie comes down right in time to protect that Musketeer. Spirit Goblin's going to do the same thing. Miner going to go to the back. Now Arrow's probably going to come in here. No, arrows do not come in. Fireball does instead, as that Mega Minion takes that Musketeer off the board, and that Lava Pup keeps working on that tower. But meanwhile, all the while, Aslan decides to take that right-hand tower of his own with the Mortar.
Yeah, and he's playing very well here. This is a tough matchup, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to defend, but this is it. This is all he has to do. One defense, he wins the game. Will he actually be able to do it? I'm not sure, because it's a very tough defense overall. And that Mega Minion getting in front of the lava was a very, very nice help. But I think, oh, it did not get out of range. Okay, wow. So he could actually win this.
Doesn't get out of range. We see a good defense here. Valkyrie comes down. Fireball going to come out on top of that pile up, ideally. 4 elixir down. Where is it? Fireball coming in. There's the fireball. Wow. And somehow, Aslan hangs on for a very, very well-played defense, and I think he gets out of his hardest matchup.
Yeah, I can't believe he won that, and Aslan now has to be feeling very, very, very good. This is incredible to see. And I think it comes down to, why are you giving up towers so easily? We've seen it over and over today. There's no reason you should be giving up a 1,200 damage tower to one mortar. That's all he did. He gave it up to a single mortar. No miners, no spear goblins, nothing. That cannot happen. You know there's fireball on the other side, so either choose, okay, I'm going to go dragons behind lava and I'm going to use my flying machine and defend this mortar, or flying machine behind the lava and dragons to defend the mortar. But something has to happen.
It's a 5-minute game, brother. It's a 5-minute game. That's a lot of time, especially when you talk about those last couple minutes with double elixir and triple elixir. There's no reason to make that risky of plays, those high risk, high reward plays early in single elixir when you're playing beatdown and when you're playing anything, period. There's just no reason for it. And, you know, Demon Chocolate had a lot of time in that game to sit back and kind of do what he needed to do, but instead he tried to go aggressive early on and he paid for it.
He definitely did, and now we're going to see this Mega Knight Graveyard Night Witch deck. And even at the start, he gets a free Mega Minion hit, which doesn't seem to happen very often. And I like that he didn't go Mega Knight here. It was very tempting to, because that cage was basically down already. And here he's going to get a Hoggy spawn, the Night Witch. Look, this is a pretty nice start for Demon.
Yeah, Demon going to get a lot of damage in on that right-hand side. You see that Brawler on the tower. Brawler being on the tower is never anything you want. He does so much DPS, and now we see Aslan going right back on offense. Is this a desperation offense? Is this like trying to get even offense, or is this a good offense?
This is a combination of both. It worked out well, but I think it was a little bit of a desperation. Let me try and get some damage back, and it did work out. He does have that fireball. I think it comes down to more of a chocolate mistake than actually Aslan's good offense. You know that he has that fireball, so you need to be ready. It's gonna come down onto the flying machine, and I think he wasn't hovering anything over.
Yeah, with that fireball being in hand, being the spell of Aslan's, you'd think the Demon's are going to really work for the opportunities to continue cycling these recruits in the back along with Zappies, right? It's so hard to get great fireball value when those Royal recruits are in front of the charge of your entire push, and when you separate it correctly, when you actually space it out just like that.
Yeah, and I think a Mega Knight does have to come down here, because this is going to get fireballed again, most likely the Mother Witch here. I'm not sure. It actually doesn't get fireballed, which will allow him to defend this pretty well. without having to use the Mega Knight, and now he cannot push with the Hoggies, or if he does, Fireball should come down. Yeah, there's a Fireball, pretty easy defense out of him. He should have kept that and started another rotation, in my opinion.
I really liked that out of Aslan. I really liked what he did there. His opponent goes hyper aggressive. He didn't have the elixir for the Mega Knight, but he did know that he had the elixir and the card of the Fireball to deal with his biggest threat, which was that Royal Hogs push. You don't have the elixir to drop that Mega Knight down up front, which is ideally what he wanted to do. He had the Fireball ready to go, and he mitigated a lot of great damage there. Wow, 236 on that right-hand side. Mega Knight a second late, Snowball in a second early. Aslan's going to drop game number 2 most likely.
Yeah, this is it. That's game over, and it all came down to that was a very smart play out of Demon. He knew that a Mega Minion was going to come out, so he Electro Spirited in order to give enough time for his Zappy and the Flying Machine to actually deal with it, and it kept the Flying Machine alive, which ended up forcing a Snowball, and then that didn't allow him to have the Fireball ready in hand. Very smart play and a good prediction, which is what we spoke about so many times. You need to be proactive in these matchups. Be one step ahead, because that's how you win.
Yeah, you know, we talk a lot about the best players in the world having flashy plays sometimes, but for the most part, just being incredibly consistent. Those predictive plays like that, those need to become not flashy for you, right? Those bridge battles between fishermen's, those electro spirits, heal spirits, ice spirits up high at the river to protect your range unit, surrounding with skeletons, miners defensively, things like that to keep those big range damage dealers on the board. Those have to become second nature at the highest level. And that's why I really appreciate you pointing it out and Demon Chocolate doing it. It hasn't been much in this competition where we've seen Aslan just get outplayed in a moment. And that was a really, really great moment of Demon recognizing what Aslan had been doing time and time again and going, okay, if I can see through, if I can get through that one moment, I could probably take the game.
Absolutely. And you're 100% right. That cannot be your flashy play, and that cannot be your Fireball either.
No, sir. 6 elixir spent, and then you add in 3 more from that Mega Minion working its way down the left-hand lane. Not a great start there for Aslan. Down to 2062 already.
And the story of Gamestars, right? Can you not miss your spells for a whole set? You will win the game if you don't do that, because it seems like the biggest mistakes we've seen, and not out of just one specific player, over and over again, have been the spells.
Yeah, honestly, yesterday we saw it with Rockets. We saw it 2 weeks ago with Lightnings. You know, we've seen it a ton of times with Fireballs, considering it's the most popular spell in the game. And spell value, spell value, spell value. The other one that, of course, you just have to mention is the Tornadoes. We've seen a lot of missed Tornadoes as well.
Yeah, and the Fireball on the Hoggies was just... It was rough to see because there was no other pressure, right? It seemed like he anticipated, the timing was a bit off. But overall, this matchup shouldn't be that bad for him. It's basically what we just saw from Blairon. Keep your Fireball always for that Mother Witch when you're going to graveyard. And if you do that, you should be okay.
Nice timing there on both of those units. Going to get 2 Hogs on the board. Mega Minion in front of that Mother Witch. Now Mother Witch in kind out of Demon Chocolate. Fireball, though, going to come in. Nice. So no Piggy's going to spawn, and that tower goes down to 1678.
Yeah, and I really like that, knowing that you have your own Mega Knight, you have a Fisherman, and you can still defend Hoggies without a Fireball. So I'm okay with that offensive Fireball and get that Mother Witch off the field. He just needs to be careful with a good... I really like that Fisherman. I think it's a smart play out of him, because look at those E-barbs. It seemed like he didn't expect that Fisherman to go down at any point, and the E-barbs basically get taken off the board. The Mother Witch is still full health as well, but it's not all that nice because now it forced out that Fireball. He had to use
Fireball. Yeah, nice Fireball value there. We see Aslan is down just a little bit of elixir now. He goes Night Witch in the back, and those bats will get a good amount of damage in. A couple more 100 HP off of that left-hand tower. 1477 to 2062. Royal Hogs come out right-hand side here for Demon Chocolate. That will give us a King Tower activation.
Yeah, there is the King Tower activation, and he needs to Fireball now. He wasted the Snowball, and here we go. Hoggies are going to be all over the field. You should have Fireballed first and then Snowballed. You know that Mother Witch is going to come down, and it feels like if he did Fireball first, that would have been game over already.
Yeah, it would have been game over, but still a lot of damage in here. Kind of surprising. I did think that that defense was going to be a little bit cleaner there from Demon Chocolate because of exactly what you were attributing to. You know, that snowball coming out for the fireball, that Mother Witch able to get some value, but still good cleanup there. And now we see a Mother Witch of Demon's Own trying to get some piggies on the board, which doesn't get as many as he'd like. That Mother Witch retargets on the Mega Knight as opposed to those bats.
Yeah, and very, very fortunate from him that that retarget came in, because it seemed like if it didn't come in, he was going to have to overspend a lot. And look at all the damage that came in on the right. That Fisherman did activate King Tower, but at a very, very high cost. And if he would have forced an overspend on the left, Hoggy's on the right, that could have been game over.
Yeah, this is huge right now. Zappy on top of that Flying Machine, Mega Minion there to take it off the board. Mega Knight going to come down on the left-hand side. It will get pulled away. It will not get pulled away. Yes, yes it does. Fireball comes in. Mega Knight gets pulled away. Mother Witch off the board. Zappies do come down, but now a very, very strong push in the left-hand lane. Got to go to the right. 123 on that bottom right-hand tower. That was a Night Witch, I believe.
I don't even know what I didn't even know there was a troop down. I was so focused on the left. And I think Demon was too, to be honest, because I don't know what happened.
I don't know if it was a Night Witch plus a Bar Barrel, or maybe a Night Witch on its own going, just walking across, and then the bats getting damage in. Maybe we'll have to check it out in the replay later on when we go through the highlights. But all of us caught looking. Aslan, the only one playing in the moment. He goes right-hand lane, all the focus on the left, and he gets that tower down to 123, and another come-from-behind victory from this incredible player from Turkey.
Yeah, and I really do want to know what that tower actually went down to, because I have no idea. And it happened to us as casters, so I'm assuming it happened to Demon, because it feels weird that he would just allow that tower to drop all the way to 100 HP. Maybe he just over-focused, hyper-focused on that left tower like we all did, and the game just, you know, flew out of his hands.
Yeah, and that's maybe more of what we were mentioning earlier when we started this set, was just that, you know, it does seem that Aslan's understanding of the macro is through the roof.
Yeah, it could definitely be that, and we'll see it for sure at the end. I'm sure we'll see what actually happened there. And he's one game away from winning this, and Mother Witch coming out, and Aslan should feel pretty comfortable in this situation. He's definitely in a lot better situation than he was earlier in the day.
Yeah, this is going to be his Royal Giant deck. And you see that Fisherman going to get a pull on the Mother Witch, pulling her nice and close. Mother Witch not going to get any piggy spawned on the board here, as that curse should come off the Fisherman by the time he crosses the bridge.
Yeah, and he will actually get a Hoggy on this side. He should get two. And very early elite Barbarians here.
Yeah, very aggressive E-Barbs there, and piggies out on the opposite lane. An incredibly aggressive push here, which is pretty ill-advised against Aslan this early on, I feel like. Now you see completely healthy E-Barbs coming down the left-hand lane, and the same amount of elixir in the hands of both of these players. A Fireball is going to come down.
Wow,
Yes,
he missed it.
But it misses the Heal Spirit, and just in time, it looked like maybe, I mean, the Heal Spirit went off. I don't really know the interaction there, but 1807 is the remainder.
Yeah, but look at this. Look at the HP, the elixir, and this. Yeah, that was all I was waiting for, was that Fireball. And this all attributes to one push from Demon that was completely unnecessary. He put it down these elite Barbarians, knowing the deck that he was going up against, right? It's not like you're blind in this situation. You know exactly what Aslan has left, and you still did that a little bit, maybe just the mind playing tricks on you, and, you know, wanting to win the game too early, and Aslan just cycling a log here.
I mean, how do you feel about an 11 elixir dual lane push in single elixir, Eric? I mean, it just feels really, really aggressive.
It feels great if your opponent doesn't have something that will defend it with simply 5 elixir, right? Or even 4 elixir, I think was the defense. It was just a Fisherman and Skellies, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So it's okay to do it, but you need to understand when you can do it. And that Hoggy hit with the log will take tower, and now he can RG in the middle whenever he wants as well, which is a big deal when you're playing RG and you're in a 2-tower game.
Mother Witch there cycled to the right-hand side to maybe keep the tower on the board, but not very well placed, not very well timed. Does go down, and so does the Mother Witch here of Aslan's, but Aslan very firmly in the lead. 10:24 remaining with just 10 seconds on the clock, and that is going to do it. Aslan will be the winner from Group C today. No surprise there as he moves through Blairon and Demon Chocolate. We will be talking to Blairon at the end of the day to kind of talk through his set there with Gas and maybe talk through him with what happened earlier on with Aslan. But overall, Aslan did very, very well. He comes out with that Mortar Valkyrie deck in game number 1, which we felt was his hardest matchup. And then in game number 2, he has a phenomenal come from behind win. Second game that he won, a come from behind win, and just really great stuff out of him.
Yeah, and he's definitely taking a deep breath now, relaxing, knowing that he doesn't have to go through any matchups again versus Blairon, because that would have been a very, very, very rough set, and it could have left him eliminated from Gamestars. So Aslan has to be very excited, not only to move on, but to get out of this group with the tough matchups that he had.
Yeah, that would have been a very rough day had he had to run into Blairon once again. There you saw game number 1 going in the favor of Aslan. Game number 2 goes all Demon Chocolate with that Royal Hogs deck. But then but then Aslan was just kind of in the driver's seat.
Yeah, he was completely in the driver's seat for the majority of it. And I think the way he was able to really win this set was a little bit of desperation out of Demon Chocolate. It was that inexperience that we've spoken about. They try to win the game too early, and you just don't need to. You've said it before. These games are 5 minutes long. You don't need to win it in the first minute.
Yeah, there's no reason to go that aggressive, period, and especially not against a guy like that. Aslan, very, very strong player, and as you can see, he's got in every single one of his decks, he's got cheap enough responses to deal with very aggressive ground pushes, to at least stall them for a second, whether it be the Fisherman, the Electro Spirit plus Spear Goblins, or as we just saw, Fisherman plus those Skeletons. You've got to be aware of that. You've got to be cognizant of what your opponent has in response if you're going to sell out on a push. So Aslan is going to move on to our international finals. He has already secured to battle it out for over $30,000. Demon Chocolate on the other side, we will see him back here on Friday, May 14th, facing off against Blairon again to see who will get second place in Group C and who will be eliminated from the tournament. Beneficious, Eternity, and Aslan are our winners so far in our group stage finals. And of course, Rufy, Predator, Denbeer, Demas, Blairon, and the guy that you just saw, Demon Chocolate, they will all be back on Friday playing for elimination.
And it seems like it's shaping up to be a great final so far, right? These players that are moving on all have so much skill, apart from the ones waiting for them, right? Players like One Hive, players like SB. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm very, very excited as this progresses, because really, the players are showing up.
Yeah, they really, really are, especially, now that we're getting closer to the end of it, it does seem analysis and the deck composition has gone, up just a little bit when you talk about skill level. And one of the guys that I think has adapted the best to the meta, and maybe even over-adapted, we'll find out, is Blairon, who came out with 3 P.E.K.K.A. Graveyard decks. He picked up that 3-1 victory over Gas. Blairon, first of all, congratulations, man. How you doing? And talk to me about your deck selection today.
And I think I did the analysis against my opponent, and I saw that he likes E-Giant a lot and RG, and I thought P.E.K.K.A. would be a great deck against him. I think I should have won if I didn't misclick that graveyard, but it's okay. The mistakes happen.
Yeah, and mistakes do happen, like you said. After you lost that set, were you worried at all? It is rough to lose after you're up 2-0 and you have some good matchups. Or what did you do to, calm down and get ready and for that next set that you had to play?
Nah, I just thought it was my mistake that I lost and tried to focus on the next game. I knew he had a E-Giant deck, so I knew I could beat him easily with my 3 P.E.K.K.A. deck, as long as I don't mess up something. And I went for the game. He disconnected. I misplaced a graveyard, but it's okay. I think in the end I won.
Yeah, you had a little bit of luck go back and forth. Original set with Aslan, I wanted to talk to you about, because you played so calm your first 2 games, and then it felt like you started to play a little bit more aggressive. Were you feeling like you had worse matchups later on, or were you feeling like you just lost a little bit of your comfort?
Nah, I think against the RG deck, I didn't have that good of a matchup because he has skeletons and fishermen, and my P.E.K.K.A gets distracted easily, and he doesn't have a reason to attack with RG. He just fireball cycle and log cycle. But in the Mega Knight deck, I think I went aggressive with one P.E.K.K.A. I think I still would have lost that matchup because it's hard to break, it's hard to defend Night Witch, and he has Mother Witch against my graveyard. But I think I should have played a little more defensive and reactive.
Yeah, that's great. And go ahead.
In the third game, I was playing good instead until the end when my nerves get to me and I misplaced a graveyard. Maybe it's because I'm a Muslim, so I'm fasting right now, and being in the first time in the camera, it affected me and pressure got to me.
Absolutely. And I mean, everyone that is new to the camera and to everything, the nerves are normal. The only way to get used to it is being more on camera, right? It's normal. And looking forward, now you have to play one more set. How do you feel against Demon Chocolate, the matchups? Do you like what you've seen? Do you like your decks versus him?
Nah, I think it's gonna be really hard because he has Zappies and Recruits, which it's a easy win for him, and I think Lava should be a good matchup for him, but I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna practice these matchups and maybe I could win. But
yeah,
I
I
think
mean, you heard the best in the world.
Matchups.
You got to play through those very, very difficult matchups to end up coming out on top on Fridays. So, Blairon, congratulations today. I'm glad that you were not eliminated. You had a bit of misfortune with your graveyard, but then your opponent disconnected. So, we'll see you more on Friday. Good luck with those matchups, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, what a roller coaster of a day for that guy right there. I mean, up and down, misclicks, disconnects, and somehow he ends up making it through to the group finals.
Yeah, that is it's an eventful day, especially like he said, he's fasting right now, so he's running that tank low on gas right now. And especially, look, we both knew it when we saw that graveyard placement go completely wrong. It was the nerves. It was easy to tell. In last second, when those seconds are counting down, he's the offense, you're trying to get that graveyard down. It's normal, and that's what a lot of these players need to understand. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be nervous because you're just starting off your competitive career. This isn't, you're not 500 games in. You need to just take it as it comes, learn from mistakes, and move on.
Yes, and I'm really, really happy that he recognized it, right? He's like, I had some nerves, maybe I'm starving, you know, I misclicked here, I made some mistakes there, I got over aggressive, and he talked about his matchups. I really liked his approach and kind of his recognition of the game and where things went right and where things went wrong. So guys, that's groups A, B, and C as we are through Monday through Wednesday. Tomorrow is going to be Group D, our final group of the week that will be battling it out to figure out who's going to get pushed through to international finals at the end of tomorrow. And then Friday, it's elimination day. Groups A, B, C, and D, second and third place. One of them will move on to the finals to battle for $30,000, and the other one will be sent home packing with not a whole lot other than, you know, a couple good weeks of fun with Eric and myself. Thank you so much for joining us here at the GameStars League. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. Central European Summer Time. For Eric Benamou, I am Andrew Guy. Make sure you follow us as well as GameStars on Twitter, and keep on clashing. We'll see you tomorrow.